What's up, Titans fans, and welcome to another episode of Titans Global Podcast. I am your host, Maximus Titan Fan, and with me, as always, is my buddy Link. What's up, Link?
Hey, what's going on? What's going on, guys? Glad to have y'all here tonight. Ready to talk some Titans. And as always, make sure to like, make sure to comment, make sure to subscribe. Most importantly, make sure to comment. The show is for you guys. We want to see you in the chat. We have our opinions and we want to hear yours. So we do this for y'all and excited to get to it tonight.
Absolutely, man, and we got some wild topics to talk about tonight. Well, I want to talk about some position groups that we're excited to see in our new team. I want to talk a little bit about the first open to the public training camp since 2019. I'm really excited to talk about that. We got a few things to talk about there, and I want to talk about how Jeffrey Simmons is great on and off the field. We already know about him on the field. I want to talk a little bit about him off the field. But first, let's get to all the new additions that we're excited to see in our new position groups for this year. And mine doesn't have a whole lot of new additions, but y'all know I love me some Tajay Spears, and I can't help if I've got an opportunity to talk about Tajay Spears, I'm gonna bring him up. So on offense, for me, it's the running backs. And not only that, I'm interested to see in how we use the running backs so much differently now, because usually in Titans lore, you talk about running backs, you're thinking about like the Derrick Henrys, the Travis Henrys, the Eddie Georges, the guys that get up there and just beat you up until they get the yards that they need to get. But these guys are different. They do it a little differently. They're very quick on their feet. They like to leave you in your shoes and that's it. So I'm really interested to see that. Plus, I think we're going to be passing a lot more. So like my estimation is somewhere between 35 and 40 passing attempts per game is what I think they're trying to hit. So I think the running backs will be used in a different way in the passing game as well. I think they're going to be a big check down option, and that's why I'm excited to see how we use the running backs in this new system. What about you, Link? What are you excited to see on offense, brother?
Yeah, no, I agree. And just to kind of build on that, I mean, hey, don't sleep on Pollard either. I mean, they brought this guy in. He's a workhorse. I think he's got the most touchdowns outside of the 10-yard line with 8 in the last few years. So, I mean, he's going to be utilized. And then, in that third running back position, I mean, nobody wants to see anybody get hurt, but we talked about it before. Those position battles we're going to see with Jabari Small and Dylan Johnson and some of these other guys that are coming in trying to make a name for themselves and earn a spot on the roster. I mean, it wouldn't shock me to see them get some reps in the regular season. So, yeah, I mean, running backs are going to be huge. And then on top of that, for me, talking about pass catchers, this wide receiver group, the way that I think they're going to spread things out, the way I think they're going to get vertical, get down the field, that's going to open up, like you were talking about, it's going to open up some of the check down opportunities for the running backs. So just to see this wide receiver group work and play off each other, I mean, you can't cover everybody, and you double team DeAndre, and then Boyd's in the slot, and then you try to bring down a secondary, try to bring down a safety to help on Boyd in the slot, and then you've got Ridley on the other side. So it just on paper, I mean, it's absolutely destructive what this offense could be able to do. They've just got to put it all together and put it on the field. So really excited to see what the receivers can do. And then, like you said, the running backs getting involved as well. But for me, I think the most excited, this offensive line. The additions that they've brought in, the guys that are coming back, the new coaching staff they put together with Callahan. I mean, for me, I think this could be one of the most improved position groups in all the NFL, looking at this offensive line this year. So that's where I'm looking. I'm looking wide receivers. I'm looking offensive line, giving Will Levis the time to get the ball down the field, and then looking at those running backs, being able to open up the pass game even more.
Yeah, man, I'm really excited to really just see it all come together on offense.
Absolutely.
I mean, we've been talking about it all off season. We're obviously excited to see what the new offense is going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also really excited to see what the new defense is going to look like.
Yeah.
I am so excited about Denard Wilson being our defensive coordinator, not only because I think he's a great defensive mind and I think he's going to do well as a defensive coordinator in the league, but he's a secondaries coach.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've been a fan of the Titans for any amount of time. You know, our secondary has been questionable ever since the Cortland Finnegan, Alteron Werner days.
Hmm.
We haven't had a really great secondary in a really long time. I hate to say it, but Kevin Byard's basically his entire career wasted
Hmm.
because he didn't have anybody on the outside to cover him properly, so he didn't have to worry about it. Now we do. Now we've got a great pair of cornerbacks and even a third cornerback who's going to be pretty darn good in the league. I think maybe top 5, maybe even top 3. But the greatest thing about that is Amani Hooker, he said in camp, I get to do my job. Now I can go out there and do my job.
Yep.
And I feel bad that we don't get to see the mayor of Murfreesboro get to do his job like he should have. But it makes the strong safety, Elijah Molden, I think it makes a lot more sense as to why he is being played the way he is. I think Amani's going to be played more like a free safety. That's why they're not bringing anybody else in. Now, it does scare me as far as the depth goes at safety. Cornerback also, not going to lie. Any one of those guys go down, and I'm like, well, crap, here we
Hmm.
go. But on paper, start of the season, the secondary should be on fire. And I'm really interested to see how Denard Wilson uses our great secondary and our pretty darn good defensive line to his advantage. What you got on defense, Link?
Yeah, no, I agree. And like you said, on paper it's dangerous, and this secondary they have a chance to eat this year, and it really shows you the direction, kind of the new age of the NFL that Callahan's trying to move into and that Carthon's trying to move into. I mean, you get vertical on offense and then you defend vertical on defense. I mean,
Yep.
for me, that's what's been the focus of this offseason, is being able to open up the pass game more and then defend the pass game, because that's what this league is now. And if you want to be competitive, if you want to stay competitive, if you want to compete for Super Bowls, you've got to be able to throw the ball and you got to be able to stop the other team from throwing the ball. That's just how it is. And yeah, and I feel like, going back to Kevin Byard, everybody puts a lot of emphasis on him because he was so good, but he was put in a position where he was having to do not only his job, but other people's job. And that's the reason that I think we look back and say he was so good, because he did it successfully. What I want to see this year is more cohesiveness in this secondary. I want to see them be able to play off each other. I want to see somebody that actually be able to stay on an island, because that's something that we haven't really seen out of this defense in a long time. And now you've got the guys, they started last year with McCrary. Then you bring in Shadobi this year. I mean, I feel like these are guys that can be one-on-one coverage, that can press some of the best wide receivers at the line and actually keep up with them. And that's what I'm excited about. And then, we talked about the defensive line, and you talk about Jeffrey Simmons, and, then you bring in an addition like Sweat. And, I'm really curious. I still don't know how I feel about that yet. There's still some questions in the air. I feel like I've seen him, on social medias downtown more than I've seen him on a field, but, we'll see what happens with that. But I want to be able to trust the guy. And I feel like he could be a big piece of this defense. I feel like he could be a bigger piece on the defense this year than Burks could be in the offense. I feel like there's more pressure on him to perform than there is on Burks at this point, because that defensive line has to get fixed. We saw time and time again gaps open up in the run game last year. That's what cost him a lot of games, and it's what eventually cost him the playoffs. So to bring him in, to be able to trust him, that's going to be something I'm looking at, because, again, just like the secondary, if that defensive line can get pressure and get penetration, it just makes their job that much easier. So just the cohesiveness, that's what I'm looking for in this defense this year.
Yeah, and you hit on it. You hit on it there. I meant to talk about it, but sometimes I get a little excited about what I'm doing on here. But press coverage.
Yeah.
Everybody, I mean, they were making videos laughing about it, because they could not believe some of the questions they were getting about press coverage, and they were like, do you guys not know what press coverage is? And no, man, if you're a Titans fan, you have no idea what press coverage is, because, well, I mean, you do, you just don't know what it looks like in a Titans uniform, because we play our receivers 15 yards off every game. It's really frustrating. And with the secondary being the focus, we've talked about this before. the Titans, their old philosophy was keep the game close, hope you can be there close in the
Mhm.
fourth quarter and blah, blah, blah. But one big burst play or one big explosive play and you've lost the whole game.
Yep.
So for me, seeing some secondary just really encourages everything about what we could actually potentially be this year. The other big deal I want to talk about is the training camp. Now, 2019, obviously 2020, COVID happened,
Right.
and that stinks. But when everybody else in the NFL went back at 2021, pretty much to regular open camps, the Titans didn't.
Hmm.
And I really feel like that's because we had Krampus as a coach. And so I am excited to say that we actually have the first opportunity to go watch the Titans practice live as just a normal fan, where you don't have to win a lottery and be a season ticket holder
Hmm.
and go through all that crap. No, you just have to be a fan. You have to go on the website and claim your tickets.
Yep.
I don't know if I should have got on and seen before I got on here to talk about it if there were still tickets available, but I did not, because the day they announced it, I went and got my tickets because I've been waiting for this for years. And I'm really excited about it. And I really hope that this is a step in the right direction for the franchise. What do you think, Link?
Yeah, no, I agree, and I feel like this is a franchise who they don't get a lot of national attention. I think most Titans fans know that. Um, and yeah, that hurts when it comes to the fan base because you look at teams like Dallas and Green Bay. I mean, they've got fans all over the country, and while there are Titans fans outside of Tennessee, it feels like they're more few and far between than some of the other franchises in the league. And for me, we talk about Mike Vrabel losing the locker room, but I feel like towards the end there and when he started kind of keeping everything close to the vest, you lose some of the fan base just because we want to know what's going on. We pay money to see the team, we pay money for merchandise, and it hasn't felt like we've really been involved in the process and know what's going on. So for me, it's huge. It's a great way to get people back involved. It's a great way to get those old Titans fans, the ones of the Steve McNair and the Eddie George era and the Warren Moon area. It's a good way to get them back through the doors because when you hold open practices like this, it gives you something to get excited about. And it's been a while since we've had something to be excited about in an off season. We get excited for free agency moves and trades, but to actually see them on the field live and see them working and being able to get through the doors early, that's a huge one for me. Same way with preseason. I'm one of those people. I get excited for preseason. I try to go to at least one preseason game just because it's a
Yep.
way to get in the vibe, kind of get ready for football. Especially because by the time that starts, we've been starving for sports at that point. So for me, it's just a way to keep people involved, to get the fan base back together, to get everybody in one place and give them something to get excited about. So huge deal for me, and super excited to attend it this year.
Yeah. That was the other thing I was going to say is make sure and keep your eyes open on the 27th because we will be putting up some videos and stuff. Both of us are going to be there. It's going to
Absolutely.
be a fun time. And Derek, you hit a perfect point. That is exactly it, man. It's all about the fans.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm more excited about. It's not so much, I mean, I get what you're saying, Lincoln. You're right. It does get you in that kind of football phase. But for me, it's about humanizing the football players
Mhm.
and getting to know these guys. Because a lot of, that's how I met Delaney Walker. I actually met Delaney twice. Once was at a training camp and once was at a game. But both times the guy was super cool, talked to as many fans as he possibly could. I mean, I think he was one of the last ones in at the practice session because he was still trying to sign autographs and talk to fans and stuff. So, I mean, this is a huge, if nothing else, it's a huge opportunity to get other people excited about football. Like if
Mhm.
you've got a kid or something like that, it's a perfect opportunity to go check this out, man. Let's go here. Let's get your jersey signed, maybe. Let's watch these guys in real life right across this fence, maybe 20
Yep.
yards away from us. When you ever going to get that close
Yep.
to some of these superstars? So, yeah, that's why it's a huge deal for me. Plus, now that Krampus is gone, I'm hoping that this will be a more I keep calling Mike Vrabel Krampus because my wife thought it was funny and I thought it was funny, so I'm going to keep calling him Krampus for now. But since he's gone, does this mean there's more stuff coming? Like the Titans Caravan? I know y'all are sick of me talking about the Titans Caravan. If you've been with me a long time, you know I've brought it up many, many times. And it's because as an early Titans fan, this was super exciting for me because for no money, you just had to stand in line for an exuberant amount of time, maybe an hour, hour and a half. But you'd stand in line at your, athletic store, whatever it may be. Dick's Sporting Goods was some of them. I think Academy was one of them that did it. But anyway, whatever was in your area, you'd go there. You'd meet a couple football players. Usually one of them was a rookie and one of them was an older dude. And it was just really cool, man. Like the whole vibe was cool. You got to stand in line and talk with Titans fans about how excited you are about the new Titans and what they're going to do this year and how they didn't do things right last year and all that jazz. But then you also get to have that closeness again with the humanizing of the football fans. So I think the Titans Caravan is a huge important thing and they need to bring it back. And I'm sorry, I'll stop talking about the Titans Caravan.
No, you're good, and I agree. And that's huge. Like you said, the humanization of it, because we watch these guys on TV. We spend hundreds of dollars to go to the stadium and watch them, and you forget. I mean, these are essentially kids. I mean, you've got the older veterans, but I mean, these guys are kids, and that's huge for them too. I mean, that's got to be a confidence boost to go to something like that and then see hundreds and thousands of people, standing in line just to shake your hand. I mean, that's not only a confidence boost for the fans, but it's a confidence boost for the players. It lets them know that, hey, this fan base has your back. We're going to show up, win, lose, whatever, we're still going to be Titans fans. And so to me, it's just as big for them as it is to us. It gets them off the field for a minute. It gives them a chance to get in the community. We're going to talk about, Jeffrey Simmons in a little bit, how he's doing stuff in the community, but it just gives them an opportunity to kind of meet some of these people who pour money into this organization when we haven't ever won a Super Bowl. So I mean, for me, it's big for the players, it's big for the fans, and there's no reason that it shouldn't be brought back. Absolutely.
I agree, and I'm sorry, Derek, that I didn't know you lived in Texas, man. It really sucks. I'm sorry, man. I wouldn't want to live in Texas, not because I don't think Texas is a great place to live. Outside of Tennessee, it's probably one of the better states to live in for football, at least. But as far as being that close to Houston, I wouldn't want to be that close to Houston.
Yeah.
Houston really rubbed me the wrong way this offseason. Really, it was last offseason, but just all this Oilers crap, man. And now that I'm posting that, if you follow me on social media, you see me do the countdowns every day. Anytime I post somebody that's old school, if they have an Oilers jersey, like I did one of Mike Munchak, and there were people losing their minds because most of the clips that I had, he was in an Oilers jersey. But Mike Munchak played both sides, and he was a coach for the Titans for like 20 years or something like it. It was ridiculous. So, man, I don't know. Get over it, Houston fans. Making me. Anyway, let's talk about some positive stuff. Let's talk about, you were talking about just a minute ago, Jeffrey Simmons, man.
Mm-hmm.
Really stand-up dude on the field. We all know about his accolades on the field. Great defensive tackle, an amazing player on the field. And I'm sorry, Jill, I hate that you're in Delaware. That's really far north. Although I bet you're having better weather than we are right now.
Probably.
Like 95 degrees. Yeah, Link, you know about it. Building pools. Holy crap, man. That's crazy. Anyway, back to Jeffrey Simmons. Sorry. Jeffrey Simmons put on another show, another festival, really. I mean, there was food, there were the bouncy castles, and then a huge fireworks show. And he does this all the time down in Mississippi. And I don't know if y'all know it, but I used to live in Mississippi. As weird as it sounds, I used to live in Starksville, Mississippi, which is exactly where he does a lot of his community work. And I assure you that any help to them is greatly appreciated and needed, because Mississippi is a beautiful state that if you get to go there, you should check it out. But anyway, my point is that Jeffrey Simmons does a great job of helping out the community. And a lot of people are, I hear a lot of fans when I bring this up, which kind of gets me on my nerves, but they're like, well, yeah, it's always in Mississippi though. Why doesn't he do stuff for, Tennessee? Yeah, I mean, I get that, but if you were raised somewhere, then yeah, you try to help your hometown. I mean, that's just
Mhm.
what you do. And it's not like Jeffrey Simmons doesn't do things for Nashville. He does. It's just that the bigger things that he does, he puts all his focus into Mississippi. And like I said, man, if you've ever been to Starksville, Mississippi, you know what I'm talking about, dude. They could really use the lift anytime they get it. So, huge hero to the town and to the state of Mississippi and to the Titans fans. We should all be proud of Jeffrey Simmons and the things he does. Super happy with that. And I'll get off my soapbox about that. And Link, you want to add anything to that,
No,
brother?
no, I mean that pretty much sums it up, and it's just great seeing guys like that who can be so successful on the field, but then still contribute to the community off the field. And there's and it's not just Jeffrey Simmons, it's not just Titans players. I mean, it's all these guys, all the veterans, all the young guys, all over the NFL. I mean, just goes back to the humanization we were talking about. Just seeing these guys step up, give back to the community because hey, I mean yeah, these guys make more money than I'll probably ever see in my entire life.
Yeah.
And for them to get off the couch and get in the community and go help, I mean that's huge. And there's a lot of kids coming to the NFL now that wouldn't be there if it weren't for people already in the NFL who came to their hometown and did stuff like that. And I don't know Jeffrey Simmons' whole story, but there was somebody who inspired him, and now he's going out there and inspiring other people. And that for me is that's huge. And just to see these guys doing that, it means a lot. There's been some great men come through the Titans organization, just like around all the NFL, and just seeing him continue that tradition, that's awesome.
That is awesome, man. Well put. Well put. That's going to be clipped. Anyway, um, any chance I get to talk about Will Levis, I'm going to talk about Will Levis too. I can't help it, man. I mean, he's the biggest thing going on in our offseason right now. He is the entire focal point of our offense. The reason we went out and got all the free agent players we did was because we want to make Will Levis succeed, see if he's got what it takes to be our franchise quarterback. So anytime I get to talk about him, I will. And I will say, there are a lot of people out there, even professional football analysts, who say that Will Levis doesn't have it or, has weaknesses to his game that are too hard to overcome, or he will just be a mid, which I don't really understand. In my opinion, Will Levis will either be uber successful or he will not be successful at all. And that's just the way Will Levis is. I talked about it last week on our show, the highs, the lows, the emotion, the commitment that he puts into it. I heard people say that in his pre-draft interviews that he came off as cocky. And yeah, he does come off as a little cocky, but that's Will Levis, take it or leave it. And I tend to listen to people who have done this job before. I tend to listen to people, especially ones who have won a lot of championship rings, or is said to be the greatest of all time at his position. Tom Brady said, "I see a lot of myself in Will Levis." He also said, "I think he's clearly the most underrated quarterback in the league." And that's coming from one of the best, everybody says the best quarterback that's ever played the game. The guy is saying he's the most underrated player. That gets me all kinds of excited. I don't know about you guys, but I just got goosebumps all over thinking about and I love me some CJ2K. Love Chris Johnson. He came out and said, he's going to show that he's that guy. So I mean, just the players, like I said, maybe not, and I know CJ didn't win no championships, but he is the only, one of the only dudes to only do 2,000 yards in the league. So you got to give respect where respect is due. These two dudes are champions, and if a champion is saying this guy can be a champion, then he's got the potential. We just have to We just have to pave the road for him to drive on. That's all. It ain't no big deal. He can drive. You know, he can drive like Tokyo Drift. We just got to get the road down so he can drive on it. It's a weird euphemism, but yeah, you got anything for that link?
No, yeah, I mean, this is a prove it year for him, 100%. I mean, now he's got the offensive line at least down to where they're comfortable with it. He's got the weapons, he's got the running backs. Now it's just on him. I don't really see a sophomore slump out of him. I don't necessarily see that happening. But he's got to go prove it. I mean, you can't ask for much more in your second year. You get the defense right, you get the offensive line 100 times better. You get the receivers you want. So now it's kind of all on his shoulders. So I kind of just thought about this while you were talking, but who do you think has more pressure on him this year between Will Levis, the new coach Callahan, and Rand Carthon? Who do you think has more pressure on him? Would it be Levis with what they did in the offseason? Is it Carthon with his second rookie class, or is it Callahan, the new coach on the block, trying to prove himself with a new offense, completely changing the whole offense of the Titans around for the first time in years? So who do you think has more pressure on him this year to be successful?
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and mark Rand Carthon off the list
Okay.
just because of the fantastic seasons that he's had. First off season with pinch and pennies, figured out a way to make a lot of players come our way that weren't great, but we got DeAndre Hopkins out of the deal, which is sweet. And then this year we go out and get some mega stars, you know what I mean? Snead and Adobe and Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd, and we're all excited. Tony Pollard. So I'm going to take him right off the list. But man, that is a tough call between Brian Callahan and I would say that I think Will Levis probably has more pressure on him, but Bill Callahan might. I don't know. It depends on how Will Levis does. It depends on how, you know what I mean? Callahan's success basically depends on Will Levis. So, of course, that's really not true. Okay, I'm going to say Will Levis has the most pressure on him just because if he doesn't perform well this year, he's going to get some serious question marks on him because we have given him pretty much everything he needs to succeed as long as the offensive line gels well, which with Brian or with Bill Callahan, how can it not gel well? So I think we're all good. And to be honest, that I did want to say that tonight we were supposed to have a special guest. He was a little caught up, but it looks like we're ready to go now. What's up, Mike?
Hey, better late than never, I guess. Sorry about that.
Yeah, man.
About that.
Hey, that's all right. Life happens, man. Especially when you got kids.
Yeah, exactly. 4-year-olds, don't exactly run on a tight ship, you know.
No, man. They you got to kind of work around their schedule, man. And I understand that. I got a 9-year-old little girl in there, and my whole world basically revolves around her. So
exactly.
So we were just basically. Oh, good, man. We talked about a few things. So let's get your opinion on some things real quick.
Okay.
We'll just shoot them off to you real fast. What position group are you most excited to see in our new offense?
I'll say probably the offensive line. As tempting as it is to say wide receiver, obviously that's going to be the more maybe fun position group to watch, but I'm just so excited to see an offensive line with especially with a guy like J.C. Latham out there, who I think, as far as offensive linemen go, J.C. Latham is going to be exciting to watch, right? Like he's not not going to be a boring offensive lineman. He's going to be putting guys in the dirt, moving bodies and making some highlight reel blocks, as hard as that can be to imagine sometimes. But I'm fired up about this offensive line. I think it's going to be fun to see the transformation happen.
Yeah, I think last week Tyler Rowland compared his, not the players, but compared his kind of attitude and the way the team is formed, or kind of to Taylor Lewan, and I thought that was a really good comparison as far as the feel goes. I guess is the way you want to say it. He's he commands a certain amount of respect when he walks in a room, just because the way he's held himself all throughout camp, being the last one on the field and the first one on the field and working extra. And I don't know. I'm really, like you said, I'm really excited to see JC Latham.
And I'll say this: that didn't come to Lawan until later in his career, too, right? I mean, early on, that was not who he was. He grew into that leadership role, and I think he'd be the first one to tell you that. But yeah, I think maybe prime Lawan, I think, kind of had that because he's got that nasty mentality, and I think that gets guys going. So I can definitely see kind of that comparison. But yeah, I think as far as an off season goes, like you don't want to get too wrapped up in just the narratives and things like that. I mean, you got to see it on the field at the end of the day before it's real. But from an off-season standpoint, you couldn't have had a better off-season than what J.C. Latham has had since arriving, with the Titans. I mean, the work ethic stories, the reports from people that are out there that are seeing him, the reports from teammates, what his teammates and the other rookies are saying about him, and how he's kind of taken ownership of that group and everything already. I mean, it's exactly what you want to hear about, your 7th overall pick. And I'm super fired up about that guy. I mean, like I said, during the pre-draft process, that was the most fun film that I've watched from an offensive lineman since at least Penei Sewell. And I mean, just the physical strength is unbelievable. It's like watching Jeffrey Simmons, but on the offensive line.
Yeah, he really beats people up, man. I love how physical he is.
So while we're on the subject of kind of the draft and the first round pick and the excitement behind him, how do you feel about the second round pick? Do you feel like it's kind of been the polar opposite? Does it concern you with seeing him maybe out downtown more than you've seen him on the field? And do you feel like T'Vondre Sweat's a guy that can come in and be impactful, or are these red flags kind of piling up, and does it concern you a little bit?
I'm not really terribly concerned about the T'Vondre Sweat stuff until, like, if he's missing big chunks of training camp, then I think the alarm bells start going off. But I mean, these are OTAs. It sounded like he had maybe a hamstring issue at some point, and there's just no point in pushing it during OTAs, right? Like, especially with a hamstring, because that's one of those things, it can be feeling better to where you're able to feel like you can move around, but then you push it too far and it pops on you and you're, reset back 6 weeks. Right. So that's definitely something that is not ideal. Like, you want your guys to all be out there, all be healthy, all doing all the reps, all having the JC Latham off season. Right. But I'm not ready to be alarmed at Sweat yet by any means. And I get it. Like, some people's mileage varied on him coming out of the draft and everything, and there was already a predisposition to being concerned about him, which is working against him here. But look, I watched that guy dominate really the last 2 years at Texas. I know everyone views this last year as his big breakout year, but he was the best defensive lineman on that team in 2022 as well, with Keandre Coburn and some other guys that got drafted the year ahead of him in that defensive line rotation for the Longhorns. And I mean, he's been their best player up front for 2 years, was better than Byron Murphy, or more impactful than Byron Murphy. I get why Byron Murphy got drafted ahead of him, but ask anybody who watched that Texas team closely, and obviously I do as a Texas alum and fan, clearly. Well, no, that's a long one. But there's zero question that Sweat was the guy on that defense and the reason that they were such a run-stopping unit. I think they were third in run defense on college football last year, and it was mostly because of T'Vondre Sweat. So I think he's going to have an impact right away. We'll see if this stuff continues to pop up throughout training camp. But right now, I'm not pulling the alarm bells yet.
All right. What position group are you most excited to see on the defense?
Oh, man. Corner's got to be the answer for me. It's obviously another transformational group, much different than it has been the last couple years. But, Snead is one of my favorite players to watch. Again, like we talked about with Latham, just like being a fun watch. Like, Snead is a fun watch. He's physical, he's aggressive, he's feisty, he's all those things that you want to watch. And I think he's going to be great. I think Awuzie is also really talented, really good player. I think he'll bring some leadership to that group as well. And then I think McCreary is a ascending player in his own right, and should only get better here in year 3 with a really good defensive backs coach now leading the defense and Denard Wilson. So I think everything's lining up for this corner group to be one of the best in the NFL, if not the best. And yeah, that'll be a welcome change for Titans fans.
Yeah,
Probably. I mean, we got to go back to obviously the Logan Ryan, Malcolm Butler, Adoree Jackson group had a moment there, but I still don't think they were as talented as what this group is.
I agree. Actually, we were just talking about that, about how we did not have a group like this since, I would say, the Cortland Finnegan, Alteron Werner days.
Yeah.
Maybe all the way back that far.
I might even go back to like the Samari Roll, Denard Walker days. That it might go back that far. But yeah, this is going to be the best group in a long time, needless to say.
Well, and that's what excites me about this team, moving forward this year, is because you look at the quarterback position, your running back position, your wide receiver group, your secondary, your offensive line with J.C. Latham. The one word that comes to mind is energy. And that to me is just huge for this team coming forward, because it's something that I feel like hasn't been there. And that's why I feel like the cohesiveness this year is just going to really come together more than most people are thinking, more than some of the analysts are saying, because now you have energy at every single position group. You have a defined leader, I feel like, at every single position group. And that to me kind of spells success for the next couple years to come.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a good point, because I think that's one of the things that jumps off the page at you with a lot of these guys is kind of their personality, and for years, even when the Titans were good, I kind of felt like they lacked fire at times, in certain spots. I think when they were at their best, AJ Brown and Taylor Lewan were kind of bringing that for the offense, but you still didn't have a ton of that on defense. You had Simmons. Sure. But, even, Kevin Byard wasn't necessarily a fiery type of leader. A good leader, but just a different type. I think they are kind of littered up and down with those kind of firebrand personalities now, especially on offense. We'll see on defense. I think there's a few that are in there now, but they could probably use a few more. But it's going to be an interesting personality shift with this team too, I think, which is a good point.
Yeah, I think we've got a lot of players like you were talking about, fiery offense, fiery defense, fiery attitudes. And I think that's one of the things that's really going to change our culture, because we're just more excited to even be here. I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting all geeked out over the game, but I can't help it, man. As a Titans fan, you got to realize, man, we've been, we've been sitting around since 2001. I mean, we had like a little spat in, what was it, 2016 or something like that, where Kerry Collins got us 13 games or whatever, won in one season, and we went out in the first round. And we've been kind of tinkering around with the playoffs. But the thing that kills me is that even when we'd win, Mike Vrabel would never just get like super excited. Even last year, the scene where Will Levis comes off the field and he looks like he's just amped to the extreme, man. He's flexing every bone in his body, muscle. Point is he's really super excited. And who does he go to? He goes to Tim
Kelly.
Thank you, Tim Kelly. Not Mike Vrabel, because Mike Vrabel's probably standing on the sidelines with a thing under his arm, just That's his reaction when we do something good. When we do something bad, we might get a but that's it. I mean, you don't get nothing out of Mike Vrabel, and that absolutely killed me. We were talking about it last week with Marcus Mariota, talking about that being the opposite. And yeah, give me the fiery dude all day long over that calm guy. I like calm guys, but not when I'm watching football. When I'm watching football, I want to get super excited, crazy. I want to lose my voice because I'm screaming for people that get me excited. And I mean, like, I don't know, Arden Key's one of those dudes that comes to mind immediately when I think about it, because I don't think he produces as much on the field as he does in the locker room for us, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Just wanted to add that in there about the fiery attitude. Sorry.
Yeah.
And then we did also talk about Jeffrey Simmons and all the great stuff he does for Mississippi communities, and how he just got done doing the 4th of July thing down in Starksville, and how he always does things for Mississippi, and how I think it's great because I lived in Mississippi, even in Starksville, and they could use the help. So it's good that Jeff, is getting down there and doing his thing, in his own community, and I appreciate that. And other Titans fans should appreciate just as much how much he does, really.
Yeah, and I mean, even we talked about the Sweat thing a little bit, and you go back to that draft in 2019 with Simmons, and there were a lot of Titans fans, probably a lot fewer that will admit it now, but there were a lot of Titans fans then that were not crazy about that pick because they were going, "Hey, he's a guy that's coming off an ACL, a guy that's got this bad incident in his past that's famous, and how has that turned out? He's turned out to be a phenomenal player. He's turned out to be a pillar of the community. I mean, the guy absolutely, like you said, gives back to his hometown, gives back to the city of Nashville, has been a leader in the locker room, does all that kind of stuff. That worked out as well as you could have dreamed it to. So that's why I think, look, Sweat has some of that stuff, and honestly, Sweat stuff isn't even as bad as what Simmons's was, right? Coming out. So the Sweat stuff, to me, I'm like, okay, let's see what happens, right? Like nobody can predict the future. Some guys turn out to be Isaiah Wilson, some guys turn out to be Jeffrey Simmons, right? Yeah. So I'm not going to sit here and try to predict the future on what that kid is going to turn his life into, because I've seen the potential, and the potential is really good. And let's see what the Titans can get out of him. Let's see what he can get out of himself, most importantly. And so, yeah, I think the Simmons thing and that kind of marries together, because I don't like writing guys off before they even get started, right? So that's just kind of where I'm always going to come from in that respect. And I'm excited to see what Sweat can do with his physical skill set and talent here. And hopefully it turns out a lot like his new running partner in Jeffrey Simmons.
Yeah, man, I would love if Sweat turned out to be even 70% of a Jeffrey Simmons. That would be fantastic.
Definitely.
Because my God, man,
for him to be in that room with him too, right? I mean, their lockers are right next to each other. They're going to be, Simmons is going to be putting his arm around him every day, leading him, showing him the way. And Simmons isn't going to pull any punches either. Like, if he needs to be held accountable, he'll be held accountable in that defensive tackle room. I don't doubt that. So,
and can you imagine him and Simmons in like a prime situation where Sweat is actually performing like we want him to? Good grief, man. Our defensive line would be just ridiculous with Harold Landry, Sweat, and Simmons.
Yeah. And I saw it happen at Texas. He changes the math for opposing offenses, because you could not single block him when he was at Texas. He could not do it because otherwise you just couldn't run the ball. And half the time, even if you're throwing it, he's going to cause problems too. He might not have had big sack numbers, but he was disruptive. He was in the backfield a lot. He was pushing the pocket, that kind of thing. And he was very effective from a per snap pass rush standpoint too. So I think Simmons is used to being double teamed, right? Like even when Tier Tart was at his peak, nobody was doubling Tier Tart to keep him off to take bodies away from Simmons and put them on Tart. I don't think they're going to take bodies off of Simmons and put them on Sweat right away either, but Sweat has a chance to force their hand on that. And because it's just hard to block a 366-pound man that's coming at you downhill every snap, and has some quickness to him too. So there is no way you can double block both those guys. So if Sweat does hit, you're going to have problems every single snap, especially running the football, that you've got to figure out. And even for good offensive lines, it's not going to be easy. So I'm very excited to see what those two can do together.
Oh, I very much agree with you on that. Oh, my goodness. I'm in the other end of my house right now, and it is stifling in here right now. AC is not working great on this side of the house.
So right when you hopped on, I kind of posed a question. I'm curious to get your thoughts on it.
Yes.
With this year, and you've got the improved offensive line, you've got the new weapons at receiver. you've kind of solidified the running back position with Pollard and Spears. Do you feel like there's more pressure on Callahan this year, or is there more pressure on Will Levis? Who do you think is going to feel most of the heat when the season starts?
I think it's Levis because I think that the team is committed to Callahan.
Right.
And they're committed to Levis, but to an extent, right? I think Levis knows he's on the clock at this point, and
Right.
if he's not the guy, they're going to find the guy soon. They're not going to wait around. Teams just don't wait around and give guys 5-6 years like they used to. It's Zach Wilson,
Yep.
it's Trey Lance, it's all these guys. Doesn't matter how high you were drafted. You get a couple of years, maybe 3, to show that you're the guy, and if you don't, we're on to the next one because teams just aren't going to wait around for half a decade. So I would say Levis is the guy that's under the most pressure, really, for the whole team this year, and it'll be interesting to see how he handles it.
And then with that being said, so we kind of touched on it last week. So with Will Levis and, the pressure being on him this year, what do you see? And not necessarily numbers or whatever, but what do you see as a successful season for him? Is it something he can fix? Is it putting up, 4,000 yards, 40 touchdowns? And is there anything that you can look at the end of the year and say that was a successful season for Will Levis? What kind of progression do you want to see out of him?
I think it'll be hard to put just like a flat metric on it because I think
Right.
some numbers could be, artificially inflated or deflated, just depending on, what is the defense giving you? What are you taking? What does the supporting cast do around him? Stuff like that. But I think it'll be a feel thing to me more than anything. And I think it's going to be, is he making the right decision more often than not? Is he keeping the ball out of harm's way? Is he, not turning it over? Is he not, even is he not having a bunch of dropped interceptions, because he had a few of those last year too. So I think it's mostly a decision-making deal for me with him because I've posted a lot of this stuff on Twitter, but I think the accuracy concerns with him have been wildly overblown. I think if you look at all the advanced numbers beyond just raw completion percentage, which yes, is not what it was not what you want. 56% is not what you want, but highest average depth of target of all quarterbacks in the NFL last year at 11.2 yards per attempt, which is insane. It's the highest, I think, since Matt Stafford 5 years ago, I believe. And not only that, but the protection issues. And you've got the wide receivers accounted for more drops, a higher rate of lost completion percentage points than just about any other quarterback in the league. There's so much context that points to the fact that he was failed by everyone around him in this organization last year. And while it's easy to just call that an excuse, I think those are real things if you look at this and really watch the tape objectively. I think he's talented. I think he's got all the physical things that you could possibly want. I just want to see, can you make a meaningful improvement in the decision-making process? And are you running through your progressions quickly? Are you getting the ball out quickly? Are you making good decisions with the ball? And are you making some clutch plays? He's shown he can do it, the Miami game, obviously. But it comes down to, can you stay cool under pressure and make those winning plays at the end of games? And I think if I can see those things from him, even if the stats, maybe aren't the best or great, whatever they may be, and whether the team wins or loses, frankly, I think, because if they're putting up 34 points a game as an offense, but the defense is giving up 36, because they can't get a pass rush or whatever, that's still a success. You could still be, 5-12 and hey, Will Levis is the guy. But I hate to put a number on it necessarily. I think it'll be more of a feel, but yeah, I think you want to see maybe touchdown to interception ratio go to more than 2 to 1.
Yep.
Don't have many fumbles, that kind of thing. I think protecting the football is going to be one of the big things for me.
Well, and that's what we talked about before. I mean, if some of those interceptions last year weren't dropped, we might be having a totally different conversation on Will Levis. I mean, yeah, the metrics are there, the physical attributes are there, but I mean, let's be honest, he had a little bit of luck going into last season too. And I still think he's going to be a great, successful quarterback. We were talking earlier about, how we've had guys like Tom Brady and Chris Johnson come out and praise the guy. And I feel like that speaks a lot to what people thinks he can do. And, with a lot of these major analysts kind of talking about him and the advanced metrics like we talked about. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I want to see the decision making improve. I want to see the progressions, and I want to see him not being afraid to take a check down. When you've got a guy like Tajay Spears, like we were talking about earlier, I mean, get the ball to him 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and he can still make a play. So just knowing that he doesn't have to go 40 yards down the field every single play and be a superhero, that's what I want to see out of him this year.
Exactly. And that the play that like crystallizes that exact point for me is that play against the Steelers. I think it was like 3rd and or maybe it was 4th down. I can't remember which one it was, but no, it must have been 4th down, but it's like 4th and 4. And he had a check down to, I think it was Kyle Phillips wide open right underneath, but he goes for the deep shot to Treylon Burks down the sidelines. And it's like, he made a good throw. Burks was not able to make the play on this. It would have been a tough catch, maybe a better receiver makes it, but it's like one of those things where you don't have. I know the matchup maybe was there. I know that
right.
Maybe you looked at it and you saw, all right, we got one-on-one on a vertical route. I'm going to Burks. We like that. I like the fact that he's aggressive and you got to dial him back, but he does need to dial back, and he needs to know when to take those shots and when not to. And hopefully that's a big part of what Brian Callahan is doing with him, as we speak here this offseason.
Absolutely.
Working on that stuff and going through the tape and, figuring out how do we get this guy to take the check down? Because, like you said, a guy like Tajay Spears should be eating guys up on 3rd downs, right? I mean, just 100%. That should be a weapon for you, and take it when it's there.
Yeah, man, that's exactly it. And that's what I want to see mostly from Will Levis is mental progression, just like you talked about from year 1 to year 2. I think they said something like they worked on his lower mechanics and just tweaked it a little bit. Yeah. But that's all they had to do physically was just tweak him a little bit, which is just fantastic for me. I love hearing that because that means Callahan likes the way he throws the ball, his release. All that stuff is good for Callahan, which we all know what Callahan likes to do. So I think it's just a match made in heaven. I'm really happy about it. But as we draw near, we are drawing near to the 1 hour mark, and I always try to keep these under an hour. It doesn't have to be, but I try to. Do we have any final thoughts going into camp? Because we won't be back until camp is actually here. So any final thoughts for you, Link, before we go into camp?
No, just excited for it. I mean, I think guys report in, 2 weeks now? So I'm excited to get everybody in, seeing who came ready. That's going to be a big one for me. And then these position battles, I mean, that's going to be huge. You got a lot of guys on this roster right now. Only so many are going to make the cut. So just seeing these guys get in there and work, who wants to be here, get the work ethic going. And, the guys that show up early, that get a head start, that's going to be something I'm looking at, like the Treylon Burks, even those 3rd positional guys, the Jabari Smalls. I mean, that's something I'm going to really be looking at in training camp going into preseason. So just seeing who showed up to work and go from there.
Right on, Mike. You I know you had a kind of a short show, but any final thoughts before we go into training camp or in the show?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, and this is on brand for me, I think, but I'm pretty fired up about the right guard and right tackle battles in camp. I mean, leave it to me to get all juiced about some offensive line position battles, but
I feel you.
I'm excited to see who comes out of that and how confident the team seems to be in those guys. Because I think the ideal situation is that someone emerges pretty quickly in camp. It's a short battle, and then you set that 5 moving forward. Because, I mean, as talented as these guys are, you're still looking at an offensive line that's probably going to be replacing 4 out of the 5 starters in that group from last year, which is good. They needed to be replaced. But, we always hear people talk about it, and I talk about it all the time. Continuity in that position is so important and really helps. And I think Cushenberry is a guy that will help them. He's smart. He's a guy that's going to be able to get them set up. He's very like Ben Jones-esque mentally, can kind of get them set up for success. But you still got to have that like unspoken bond with the guy next to you that you're going to be seeing everything through the same set of eyes, and that can only come through repetition. So I hope a right guard and a right tackle emerge quickly and run with that job and do well, obviously. But I hope those battles are short and sweet, and I guess if I'm guessing today, I'm putting my chips on Sadiq Charles and Nicholas Petit Frere, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's who I would think. In case you didn't notice from my reaction. But I love it on Twitter. Everybody, as soon as we signed, what was it, Jaron Christensen, I think is his name.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, oh, they're not happy with who they have on right guard, and that right there tells you all you need to know about what we're thinking about right guard and right tackle, because we are all on pins and needles.
Mm-hmm.
Any mention of right tackle, right guard to Titans, people are like, what? Did they decide? Are they doing it? I am fully there, dude. I know it's kind of a geek thing to say, it's a comic book geek, whatever, football geek, whatever. But I'm with you. I want to see who ends up on the right side. I think it's and I think it's either MPF or Leroy Watson. I think Leroy Watson has a decent chance too. And I think, honestly, Sadiq could move out to right tackle. Like you said, I'm really interested to see what they do there in training camp and how that all unfolds leading into the season. But other than that, I think we had a pretty darn good show. Thank you for coming on. I apologize that you had
no, totally on me. I'm sorry I was so late, guys. I wish I could have made it for the first half too there, but
don't worry about it, brother. Like I said, thank you for being on the show. We really appreciate it, man. If you guys don't follow Mike Herndon, what are you doing? But Twitter, Football and Other F Words podcast, and journalist for the paulkuharski.com. Did I miss anything?
That covers it. And toddler dad. Yeah. Which sometimes which comes first and sometimes interferes with the other stuff.
Hey, that like I said, most important title you can have right there is dad, man.
100%.
Again, thank you for being on the show. We love you. Second time Mike's been on our show. Hope we get a third time.
Of course.
Link, anything you want to shout out before we roll out?
No, that's it. We'll see you guys at training camp. Excited to get there.
Yes, keep your eyes open for our training camp video. 27th, we are going to be there. First time real normal fans can go watch the Titans practice. I am so excited. Thank you for being with us tonight. And until next time, tighten up.
Tighten up.
Peace out.